Hey folks, welcome to a special Arcane Assist series. We're doing a bit of a deep dive on Vlad1, and specifically Vlad1 in the Winterguard Command Theme Force. The focus of this mini-series is going to be me, Tim, taking you guys through the list learning process. What you're going to see here from me is basically a game one. We did kind of a bit of a preview of this with the Ghost Fleet game that you saw earlier this week, but this is very, very early stage games played. So you're getting what I'm learning, what I'm looking for in terms of lessons, what I'm experimenting with in the Vlad1 list. We're putting it into what's considered a bit of a classic Mark III matchup. This is Vlad1 into Fyanna2. I've got Craig with me here. How's it going, Craig?
Hey, everybody. No, not too bad, Tim.
Craig's a local Legion player, really knows his stuff, has a lot of experience with Fyanna, so it's a good litmus test. This is a really interesting matchup because it's one of the ones that a lot of Legion players ascribe to be a very, very strong matchup for Fyanna, and it's one that a lot of Vlad players describe as being a very strong matchup for Vlad. So obviously someone's wrong here, but as it's a game where Craig has a lot of experience and it's one where I'm trying to learn this list, I've got to expect to be kind of cagey and learn the nuances of what could be a really important matchup. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what my process is here. Obviously, I've read all of my cards. I know all my rules. I'm playing with a fully painted army. I've made some list decisions based on what kind of list I want to see. As I mentioned before, I'm playing in Winterguard Command. I have Vlad1 with a War Dog. I've got a 5 Jack Battlegroup, and we'll get to why that's important in a moment. It's 3 Marauders, 1 Juggernaut, and a Destroyer. The Destroyer gives me a little bit more ranged threat projection while not giving up too much of a great axe. The Marauders have a lot of kind of manipulation with their slams. Also, the knockdown's pretty critical. And the Juggernaut's a bit of an old faithful. That pound 19 crit stationary can be really important. On top of that, I have a whole bunch of rifles. I've got 2 main units of rifles and 1 main unit of Winterguard infantry, and all of those units have 3 rockets in them. So obviously the list is trying to present as much of that powerful, brutal damage rocket as possible, and leveraging the incredible Signs Important spell to do a lot of work with that. I've got the unit of Winterguard Infantry who have a tendency to stay around Vlad. A lot of people will play rockets with a 3rd unit of rifles instead of the infantry here. But I find that the infantry are a little bit cheaper, and they have a tendency to just kind of hang around Vlad to be those sack pawn targets in a lot of matchups. So I'm happy to take a slightly cheaper option. I also have Kovnik Joe, and I've got a Mortar crew and a Winterguard field gun. So as I mentioned before, the goal of this is to learn, to kind of go through the motions, to figure out what this list is all about. Craig, do you want to talk to us a little bit about the Fyanna list you brought?
Certainly. So my Fyanna list is it's basically taken from Jake Van Meter's Fyanna2 list. So it's in the Oracles of Annihilation theme force. It is Fyanna2. It is 2 Angelii. It's 1 Seraph. It's 3 Nerifs, rather. A Naga Night Lurker, and a Nephilim Bloodseer as my battle group. Outside of the battle group, I have 2 Shepherds and a Spellmartyr, and my free models from the theme force are 2 Forsaken and 2 Sorceress on Hellions.
Yeah, so lots of stuff there. Really big list, lots of flying models. So without further ado, we'll get into the match and show you what it looks like.
So
Craig won the role to go first, which is a big deal. As you can see from the way that my models are unpacked here, I have advanced move as a theme force benefit. For each unit of Winterguard, I get advanced move on 1 of my Warjacks. 5 units of Winterguard, 5 Warjacks.
So for my first turn this turn, I'm just basically being super cagey about my... I don't want to just lose a heavy randomly to rocket fire, so I wanted to measure the threat range of those rockets there. So we'll see that 20 inches coming up. That's a really scary threat range.
It's most of the table. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. So I just wanted to sort of be in good position for that. We're going to start with charging with the Bloodseer after using Slipstream, because he can use the Seraph's Animus as his own, and charges for free because of the Sorceress.
Yeah, as long as it's within, 6 inches, something like that?
Yeah, 6 inches.
Yeah, so obviously you deployed that intelligently. You got that 6 inches there. Seraph apparated, still well within range.
Yep. So at this point, I'm basically just running up to get into positions to make the dice math a little bit trickier for you to deal with. My def 14, typically def 18 in cover.
Yeah, there's some good terrain here for you to play around with. And we've got, we talked a little bit about the terrain before, but there's a forest on the bottom side here, on the bottom flank. And Craig on his side has a wall, a piece of rubble, and then maybe let obstruction in the middle could be useful to you.
Mm-hmm.
I chose sides here, and I may have given him a side with a little bit too much cover. I realized kind of going into the first turn that he had a lot of terrain. It's really hard to not give Legion terrain that's useful to them in the terrain setup for 2017, which is another thing that I think is really interesting about the Vlad list is the game can look so different on a table with relevant terrain. I mean,
Agreed.
that's one of the reasons the Steam Rally 2017 is so great is because it gives you clear guidelines on what terrain should be like.
Yeah. So again, just more things are running up into position to be relevant. We're running that Shepherd really just off the camera to be useful next turn as a...
Come in from the flanks. You'll see him. He'll jump in from off the camera. Shepherd to the rescue.
So that's rubble over there. So we're just going to put a couple beasts in that rubble and just sort of get into good positions later.
Yeah, so that rubble is actually big enough for you to fit 2 beasts into, which is pretty great.
Yeah, especially with the one angel having admonition. So in the event that Vlad feats early, that angel is relatively safe.
Yeah, you're probably just within 14 with the angel, but I think you checked and you're out with the Nerif. So like, I can totally spend my feet and boundless charge to charge that guy, and then you'll walk away. So that's not like a thing I'm gonna do, but it's it's always about that, ask a question, supply and answer kind of exchange, that back and forth conversation of War Machine.
Exactly.
We've described it before.
So this Nerif here is going basically central to the table to be in a good position to threaten whatever he puts in that zone to sort of cover that later.
Yeah, you getting the first turn is it's a big deal. Like, it means that I'm on the back foot already. I mean, my jacks are pretty far up, but I'm still in a spot where I have to think really carefully about what I can and can't do here.
Agreed. That initiative role is probably one of the most important roles of this game.
Yeah, especially in this matchup specifically. I feel like sometimes people overemphasize the importance of going first, and in a lot of situations, that's certainly true. In this situation, it probably isn't.
Yeah, I just get to take up as much space as I want to, for the most part.
Now, I mean, as much space as you want to is still 20 inches back from those rockets.
Yes,
so
that's true.
You're more careful than it might seem. But,
that's true.
There's a kind of invisible 20-inch rocket line being drawn across the entire board here with your beasts. A couple of them are in. A couple of them are just sneaking in, but the urgent, most important ones are staying just out. Those sorceresses on Hellions are both occupying a pretty wide flank.
Yes. This first turn is a bit of a long one in terms of just how fast you can unpack this list, but I think it's pretty important to just be careful about that. So
yeah, especially in this matchup where kind of putting something just a little bit out of position can cost you a heavy. Might as well take a few more moments. It's not... If you lose the game right away, that time surplus you have isn't going to do anything for you.
Exactly.
So Vlad advances out of the kill box. It's not relevant yet this turn, but I just want to be in position because often he can have a lot of stuff around him and end up jammed up. He's got 3 focus on him. He's going to cast Signs of Importance. That's how you Vlad. And next step, we're going to move some things up and take some shots. So I'm going to move rockets up from the Winterguard infantry unit and fan the rest out to protect Vlad. I'm shooting a Nerif who's behind cover. So this Nerif is, I think, is it the Furied Nerif?
This is the Furied Nerif, yes.
Yeah, so it's defense 13 with cover, jumps up to 17. Marat 5, I need boxcars to hit. It might have been smart to use Joe on these guys to give them the +2 to hit. I'd planned I would use Joe on the bottom flank here to shoot the Nerif that was behind the wall. But that one needs 11s with the bonus, whereas this one would need 10s with the bonus. So maybe because it's Furied, it would have been the better kind of target of opportunity to try to scalpel out. Regardless, I take some shots. The rocket scatters a little bit. Doesn't end up doing any damage to it. As expected. The trick with Signs of Importance is I think you just have to go for some really egregious dice rolls sometimes and just like throw kind of twigs at a car, and sometimes you just stop it.
For more egregious dice rolls, watch this space.
Yeah, it's I mean, Signs of Importance can really manipulate the odds in a really cool way. I mean, as you can see, the boosted damage on that rocket there just trucked a dude. Yeah, so that was the Devastator who put damage into the Nerif there. He did manage to hit with an aiming bonus. He did boost to hit though, so like he's a 6 against your 17, so he needed an 11, and he boosted to hit, so he got an 11 on Signs of Importance, which is not crazy. And then his POW 14 was dice -2, put a couple of points into you. So just softening up targets. I mean, the thing with Legion heavies is, especially nerfs, the difference between being softened up a little bit and just being dead is often like a couple of gunshots.
Yeah, pretty much. 26 boxes. They have more than an angel, but 16 armor is rough.
Yeah, it certainly can be. It means POW 10s can do a little bit of chip damage. So I'm activating this unit here, and they're going to do the same thing. They're going to shoot into rubble. They're just going to try to get lucky, put some damage into something. Basically, at this stage of the game, I know where the line of engagement is going to be set, and it's pretty far across the board on my side, making use of that practice maneuvers to be able to move through each other. So, I mean, like, there's a lot of complicated elements to this list. I mean, it feels sometimes like it's just roll dice and throw them at it. You know, you've got CRA, so you don't even have to worry about fanning out too far. You've got practice maneuvers, so you can move through each other. But one of the elements of the list that isn't super intuitive is kind of just knowing when to sink a bunch of time into trying for outrageous rolls, which certainly can. Like this rocket here that just rolled boxcars to hit. He's like, dice -2. I guess I'll stick 10 into that Nerf. Might as well. And when it makes more sense to save that time for, you know, being relevant in the late game, getting shots that matter more to you. So I'm just in the process of kind of feeling that out. What this game is about for me is figuring out where my clock management is. I'm still early in the process of the list. I think I know what it should be doing, but I'm trying to see, like, if I try to do all the things that I think this list should be capable of doing, where's my time management at? What's my resource allocation like? How am I bleeding pieces or points? Those are the kind of questions I want to find out at this stage. This is the unit that did get that +2 to hit from Joe, so they're trying to roll a bunch of 11s against this behind-the-wall defense 18 character. 11s aren't super likely, but I do get a hit in here, and I put a pretty reasonable amount of damage into the Nerf.
I think the Nerf has, like, just a handful of boxes at the end of this, so they did a pretty good job.
Yeah, I think 2 of the rockets hit him, which is great. Yeah, that's pretty impressive. Yeah, so we run the Marauders up. I have the objective that can grant me Pathfinder, so I'm pretty fine with this Marauder being in this forest, just kind of threatening some presence. I've got the other one to stick in the zone. And I'm trying to position myself to not lose on scenario. It's also difficult with a really big gun line like this, like a list like the Vlad list that just doesn't mind hanging back and shooting forever. It's hard to know if like how much you need to commit. Obviously, I'm putting a bunch of Khador jacks in positions to be charged by really good armor cracking Legion beasts. So, am I making a mistake here, or will I be able to take enough pieces back in reprisal?
Well, we're about to find out. So at this point, I'm just sort of upkeeping the spells here. I'm dropping, pulling in my Fury for my beasts. I'm looking at some stuff on the board here. I'm checking my mate range of my spell Martyr to see if I can get somebody over in position to do a really cute assassination attempt on Vlad, but it winds up not really being worth it.
Yeah, it's a bit tricky. Like Vlad, is base defense 15, and he has the War Dog to take him to 17. And you'd be kind of gallowsing to pull a piece out. So you'd end up getting in on him with what'd you expect, like 1 Furied Nerf?
Yeah, pretty much.
So boost to hit, try to roll the 10 with the tail, and then that's the charge attack, probably free charge.
Yeah, beat back or overtake over off a rocket. It winds up not being a big thing. Like I don't know why I spend so much time on this. Time management is probably one of my bigger flaws as a player, personally. So it's just something I'm cognizant of.
Yeah, certainly with a new list, it can feel like executing a plan. Like just knowing your plan going into it and continuing to execute that plan is pretty easy to do. Like this entire game, I don't really change strategy or tactic. By comparison, of course, Craig knows his list very, very well and is familiar with the capacity it has. And in some ways, that can result in some paralysis.
Yeah.
Like I continue executing a game plan even when it's not a good game plan because I don't know any better. Like some kind of a petulant child. I'm playing the list for the first time and I'm like, I shake rattle. This is what I do. And Craig's like, well, I'm an adult. There's all kinds of things out there like car payments and assassinations with gallows. Who knows what's going to happen here?
One thing I did here that I misplayed is I apparitioned the Seraph out of range of the command range of the Bloodseer so that he wasn't able to provide a slipstream. So this was actually a big thing that caused me to sort of change my plan midstream.
Right.
So at this point, we're just moving that Seraph up. Yeah, we're just going to put him into a place. I don't want to give up my Seraph early, because if I give up the Seraph, then I probably lose the game.
Yeah, the problem is you can threat, 14 with an Nerf?
Yes. 17 on with his gun.
So, sorry, on the Nerf?
Oh, the Nerf is 13. The Angelii are 14.
14, right. So you've got Angelii who can throw at 14, but I've got Boundless Charge feated Warjacks who can throw at 14. So if you lose that Seraph, I actually get to out-threat you, which is not a place that I think a Legion player ever wants to find themselves.
No, the game that you get out-threated in is probably a game you wind up losing. So here I'm just sort of debating where the best place I can slipstream that Nerf around that wall, and still keeping the Seraph relatively safe. I then just decide to put him behind a wall.
Makes sense. Yeah, you want to keep him in relative safety.
So one Legion thing that I've learned over time is that typically putting your beasts, especially Carnivian chassis, behind a wall is never really worth it, because they can never be slipstreamed over the wall. So you wind up passing a lot of threat range, but if you put them at like the corner of a wall, then you can sort of slipstream them on an oblique angle to get them around the wall.
Yeah, it's tricky, but it's if you can get it to work, it's really good. I've played a fair bit of Legion myself, and I like them. Like, I think they do pretty well for me, but
so at this point I'm just debating where to put Fyanna to not die. I'm fairly certain this is my feet turn, because after this the line of engagement gets sort of drawn, so we're just going to make sure that we can just get a lot of attrition work done. I want to reduce your number of jacks.
Yeah.
Public enemy number 1 at this point is that Juggernaut. If that Juggernaut crits with his axe, I don't have a feat on that beast.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
Typically Serpentine allows me to not care too much about those sorts of things, but unfortunately stationary is its own problem.
Yeah, it's a puzzle of its own, and I've definitely seen a lot of matchups where all of a sudden your feat is completely negated by a Juggernaut just getting lucky and crit stationarying you.
I mean, Vlad is also, or Signs of Importance is also Get Lucky the spell.
It is actually. It's funny you mentioned that. Just get that Pharrell song stuck in your head the entire time. That's good.
So I'm just putting some damage into that Juggernaut just to make anything that the Nerf can do just a little bit more likely. So we're just going to throw a hand cannon shot into him and just put a lot of damage into him. I think I want them doing like 6 damage or 8 damage on the shot.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
So then he's going to go, my Nerf goes in on the charge. We're looking for not double ones. I wind up doing like a bananas amount of damage here.
Bananas damage is good.
After a certain point on this one, I realized that he's pretty much decorative at this point, and decided to take some extra attacks on the Marauder next to him instead, as all he has left is his fist and his movement. So the part that I'm most worried about, which is his axe, has been crippled, and he doesn't have a cortex. So now we're just going to do a bit of damage into that Marauder. And this Nerf just overperforms this turn.
Yep, Nerfs can just roll bonkers sometimes. Like it's a couple of 10s I think he's rolled now. He's doing okay. I thought the choice to redirect after you took out the Juggernaut's axe into the Marauder was really interesting. That's experienced triage right there. A lot of times I've seen like players finish a jack because they feel like they have to, even when kind of the most important elements of it are already crippled, and that ends up in this weird kind of circumstance where like you've got a POW 18 attack. It's dice -2, should do about 5 damage. You send it into a model that has 2 boxes left, and let's even say you spike in that example, all of that excess damage is just lost. It's just completely wasted. Whereas Craig has been like, okay, the absolute minimum I needed to do to this jack to have it be controlled has been done. Let's make that damage valuable. Let's make the possibility of my dice rolling really hot really useful to me elsewhere. And that's experience in a game, right? Mm-hmm. As we talk about like over allocation or under allocation, I mean that's how you control those kind of variables.
Yeah. So here that Nerf just failed to kill 3 rockets 3 times, and I just decided to sprint him in a way that makes it so the field gun's life is slightly more difficult. I basically am giving him that nerf, making that choice, and hopefully I'll make that a little bit trickier to deal with. Over here, we're just moving some stuff around, putting the Seraph back on his base. And here we go. So here's where we go in on the Angeli's going to go in on the Marauder at some point. I saw if I could try to get greedy here and just get in both zones, but no dice. I'm just going to put as much damage into that one as possible. I have admonition, and he only has 1 inch reach, so if he goes back in to try to get retaliation, I just have the Angel walk away. So he puts a bunch of damage into him with Armor Pierce and just some other assorted attacks. Just essentially softening him up for later. I took out one of his arms, so he can't use Combo Strike or Combo Smite anymore. So that will be useful later on. Just going to do some Fury management here. So just moving stuff around so I don't have to have quite the load I used to. The Naga runs into the zone because I anticipate that those rockets are going to be scoring very shortly. And then we're just going to throw that Nerf into there and just do what else that Nerf can do. This one does not have Fury on him. So it's not going to do a ton.
Okay. So, down more Jack parts, at the very least, than I expected to. I'm in a bit of a bind here. Definitely, Craig has set the line of engagement pretty far across the table. Not only that, but I'm not scoring in my zone, and he currently is with Fyanna. So, that's more than a little bit of an issue. Exacerbated by the fact that it is the Fyanna feat turn. So I have to figure out what I can even kill on her feat turn, which is always tricky because sometimes a boosted 7 to hit misses and suddenly you lose the entire activation of a fully loaded heavy warjack.
One thing to note here is that the one Sorceress and Hellion walked into the zone and used Wind Ravager to prevent shooting and for most of that unit of rifles. Yeah,
that's pretty incredible because she walked up and Wind Ravager, then repoed deeper, and that means that whole unit can't aim and has to back out of range to be able to shoot her, which means a lot of the deeper targets that they'd want to go after, they don't have any tools for.
One thing about the scenario in this thing is that the side zones are basically dead to my list.
Yeah, one of the interesting changes in Simulator 2017 when they made it so that solos couldn't score those zones is Oracles took a bit of a hit. And that's really interesting to me because it's some of that really kind of subtle organized play balance that you see. Like Oracles of Annihilation is undeniably an extremely powerful list that sacrifices diversity for raw point bonus. However, that diversity comes at a cost. And as you saw from our Ghostly versus Vlad game earlier this week, spoilers if you haven't checked out the game already, sacrificing diversity by playing in Winterguard Command comes at the cost of access to no stealth mitigation, lower numbers of magical weapons, those kind of things that can be a real problem. So I start digging deep, ready to do this. Vlad activates Cast Sign's Importance, allocates one to the Marauder. Marauder slams that Nerif, who doesn't even slam him, just punches him twice, looking to roll 7s to hit and just hits both of them. I considerably overallocated to him, given that circumstance. The field gun backs out of range and takes some shots at the Sorkon Hellion, hoping to just knock her down. I failed to do so. She dodges, lives to fight another day. It's important, again, to realize she's out of Fyanna's control area, so she's just that base defense 14, and she's not benefiting from the feat, so she didn't get to make an evasive move or anything like that.
But having to back out the field gun made it hard to hit her.
The field gun also really wants to aim, and with a range 14 normally it gets to, so that Wind Ravager is really punishing. So we move up the unit of rifles in the top here. They've got most of their rockets, and they're ready to just do some work. As a target of opportunity, I noticed that the Naga here was outside of Fyanna's feet range, being managed by a Shepherd, so I figured, let's get that Naga off the table. It can be a pretty relevant piece, and maybe clear this zone while we're at it. I led a couple of CRAs with the guys who were in range of Signs of Importance. A couple of the guys were out of range of Signs of Importance, so that gave me kind of 3 really good attacks that put a ton of damage in that Naga. One of the rockets hit it, one of the CRAs hit it, and I think if I don't leave it on one box, I think I finish it with one of the rifles here.
Yeah.
Like it's good. Rolls real well. The final rocket, who's out of range of Signs of Importance, just tries to roll a hit on the Shepherd, misses, scatters too far. Scatters well past the Shepherd.
This Shepherd here just manages to survive in a surprising amount of the game.
Yeah, takes shots, a couple rifles, pour shots into it. Eventually I decide it's not worth it. Send some of the shots that are out of range on the Shepherd the other direction into that Forsaken. Don't manage to put any damage in the Forsaken. I do hit, though, which is surprising because it's defense 16 right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Marauder moves up and triggers Admonition. Craig had himself in a 2-inch melee range, but just out of my melee range, so I did have to move in to try to attack that Angel. I don't get to attack the Angel. So at this point, I've got a Marauder who's got 1 crippled arm. He's going to try to punch an Nerf. He hits the Nerf, which is great. Does a really respectable 9 damage to it, which is pretty good for a, guy who's only got 1 arm. So Cortex is out too. He's actually hurting pretty badly. I think he's got 14 boxes left.
So one thing with the Angel is that it's under my feet and engaged right now. So engaging. So any shots at him are going to be shooting at def 21 or something.
Yeah, that Angel is right in my face and basically something I have to ignore right now, which is a rough situation to be in for sure. So Marauder over here activates, slams the Nerf into the objective with its combo, gets a whole bunch of dice here. Signs Importance. Doesn't knock him down because I can't knock him down, but I roll at dice +4. And I think I do like 15 damage to the Nerf. Like it took a big chunk there.
Yeah, it's very, very beat up at this point.
Remember that Juggernaut that doesn't have an ice axe anymore? Well, he's got a perfectly serviceable fist. So the Juggernaut comes in. I turn him around because he's having a bit of trouble fitting in amongst the wings and axes. But he sneaks in there and he's like, all right, I'll punch you with this fist. I don't have a Cortex. Do you want to dodge here? And, one of those old 5-6-1 rolls with Signs of Importance. And dice -1, he does another big chunk of damage to the Nerf. I think the Nerf is on, 1 box now?
If that.
Yeah, we have to go to the Destroyer. The Destroyer comes in and he's like, I will boost to hit. Let's get some crit amputation action going on. Boom. Mat 7. Defense 16?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And crit amputation.
Crit amputation.
He has 4 boxes left. No matter what happens, he dies.
He dies. Yes. He critically amputated your head and torso and the other things. That is typically fatal. Mortar crew goes. I initially consider the mortar crew taking a shot at that Shepherd back there. The spotter kills the leader model in this unit. Now that unit is wholly in the zone. I can grab points from that unit scoring the zone, but not if anybody's out of it. So sacrifices were made for the motherland. I take a shot at the Forsaken. End up missing. Scatter. Let's see if I can clip something with it. I believe it ends up clipping the objective. It just scatters wild a little bit, hits the Sork on Hellion and the objective.
Yeah, winds up doing about 3 damage into the Sork and a bunch of damage into the objective.
Yeah, Signs of Importance is a spell, people.
Just casually boxcarsing.
Just casually boxcars. That's the only way to boxcars is when you do it with a relaxed tone. In the sort of fireside boxcars. The enthusiastic boxcars. All right, so I go for a bit of risk-reward play here that you can criticize me for in the comments if you are so inclined. I aim with 3 of these guys. Two rockets and a rifle aim, and 3 guys move out. I'm like, with Signs of Importance and a 3-person CRA, I'm going to be a POW 13. It'll be dice -3. All I need to do is roll, it turns out, an 11 to kill you here. And I hit and then fail to roll the 11 on damage, which in hindsight was a little greedy probably. Now, unfortunately, the 3 guys who aimed are still in the Wind Ravager bubble. She's not dead, so that was a mistake. You live and you learn. Joe's going to go. He's going to walk over here. He's going to take a shot. And he hits like a boss. and totally destroys her. So probably that should have happened first. That would have been a strategy. As you mentioned before, the focus here is kind of showing you guys the illustrative first steps of learning a list. So I'm making a lot of mistakes and I'm trying a lot of things. There's a bunch of little mini modules in this list, like things like Joe, things like the field gun, access to knockdown, the guys in the units who can aim and move, and CRA and use rockets, and damage and accuracy in a couple of different ways. So what you're getting a lot of is just me kind of testing things. The Winter Guard here charged, the Winter Guard Infantry charged. The first gentleman missed his charge attack and let you evasive out, but the rest of the guys kind of ran to jam that space, protect Vlad, and then the dog moved up to give Vlad that defensive bubble. And that's the end of the Khador turn.
All right, so I had a pretty decent feat turn. I lost 2 heavies, but with Vlad, that's pretty much inevitable. I still have 2 Ingelius and 1 Nerif available to me, so that's a lot of pieces. On top of just having the Seraph and the other random support models, we critically have that Sorceress on Hellion left over still, so she might be useful later this turn. So the first thing I wind up doing is I want to get that Juggernaut or that Marauder out of my face. We have some threshold checks here first. Nothing important happens. So I want to get the Marauder out of my face this turn. I want to weaken that other Jack who's on low health. I essentially want to just take models off the table now that I've weakened them up a bit.
Yeah. This is I survived the turn, I mitigated a lot of attacks, and I softened you on the approach. So this is kind of a cleanup phase, I guess.
Yeah. So if I can get rid of a couple of those Jacks, a couple more rockets, I want to reduce your rocket number to like a manageable 4 or 5. I want to get your Jacks down to at least crippled or dead. So we're going to try doing what we can do here. I'm debating what I can do with that 1 Forsaken. I'm like, can I get 3 guys in with a melee? But with a half inch, it's pretty unlikely. So I have to choose a new plan for her. On top of which, over here, I'm thinking I can probably put my lower Ingelius into that Marauder in the zone, armor pierce it, and then repulse it out of the zone.
Yeah, put a reasonable amount of damage into it and clear that zone. Are you planning to score a point in that zone this turn?
I'm thinking about it, but then I realized that it's probably suicide because Vlad's feet is still available. So if I go up there, I just die. We'll see that when Fyanna moves later on. But if I can put a admonition up on that Ingelius before he goes in, he's basically safe from reprisal from that.
He is.
Marauder. Especially after the Seraph goes and takes a couple shots.
Yeah. The thing that a lot of people... I mean, the Seraph is great as a threat range extender, but it also just gets so much work done with that gun sometimes.
Yeah, so that was just the Bloodseer doing a slipstream and charging something over there to get within 8 inches or 2 inches of that Ingelius.
It passing its threshold check was a big deal this turn.
Yeah. We're trying to put that Forsaken into that Jack, and she winds up just doing nothing.
Remember when I said it had 4 boxes left? Still performing? Well, it's still performing. Probably a dice -8 with a charge and a bunch of boosts. She should have done something to it, but did not even scratch the paint.
Oh, well. He still has 4 boxes, so...
It's held together by glue and gum at this point. Like, just little sticky tack and some duct tape.
One thing that I forgot to do and just did now was that the stockpile objective healed my Sorceress and Hellion for D3 boxes.
Yeah. So the Sorcerer and Hellion who took that chip damage from the mortar, the blast damage before, she actually is she's got 1 damage now. I think she's got 7 boxes left.
Yes.
Just it's good. I mean, just being able to mitigate any kind of incidental damage, that's something that I don't really have as a tool in this list.
It's also useful for if your beasts get like an aspect poked out on the approach.
Yeah, it helps your order of activations quite a bit.
Mm-hmm. So now we're just going to move that Seraph up and just put some random damage and stuff. I want to get that rocket out of the picture, and I want to just put whatever I can into that Marauder.
Yeah, probably you're just looking to flare the Marauder mostly.
Yeah. It saves me a Fury later on when I go in for the armor pierce.
Yeah, you get 3 shots, I think.
Yeah.
So first shot in the Marauder, boost damage.
Just do a surprising amount of work.
Just truck that Marauder. Hit the rocket, kill the rocket pretty trivially. Just, casual 11s. Very nice, very nice.
And then no damage on the third shot, but that's fine. I'm not going to complain about his performance this game.
He rolled 3 shots. That's the first time I've seen a Seraph do that.
So the Sorceress is going to just line up for a really cool spray here on that bunched up unit of rifle corps.
Yep. Just packed them all into the zone there for you. Just curating a lovely pile of rockets.
And Magic Billy 7's just really good at hitting Def 12.
Yep. 5s to hit. Auto kills. Seems pretty good. Yeah, she gets a lot of work out of that spray. I've seen her do it really well.
So Spellmar's running up here to possibly do a Fury later on the turn. I opt not to because it would bring me down to a pretty dangerous Fury level, especially if I try to get super greedy with my scenario play here, which I opt not to do. So the Sorceress, the Shepherd here, just runs and engages that guy.
Yeah, she's denying him a shot, or at least an aiming bonus. The rifles are much less good in melee than they are at ranged. With range, they can aim, and they can have signs of importance, and they're POW 10, and they can CRA, and in melee, they're MAT 5, POW 8.
So here, Fyanna, I debated putting him in both zones, but decided not to lose the game, and just decided to put Admonish up on the Seraph instead, or the Angelius instead.
Yeah, you've been playing those angels really, really carefully. Like, you've definitely offered Nerifs as peace trades, but those angels, who are the much more expensive piece in your list, they're definitely waiting in the wings to kind of be the closers.
Yes, that's because even without Fury, they can do a surprising amount of work with their armor pierce.
Yeah, so this Marauder, who got softened up and was flared, so you don't need to boost. You boost damage on the armor pierce. And that's a nice, sexy armor pierce. Dice plus 4 does, 14 damage?
Yeah, I think it winds up just taking basically half out.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Pretty good. He's, I think, had 34, taken 20s, 14 boxes left.
Yep.
Yeah. And he lost an aspect.
Yeah, and I just send him out of the zone.
Repulsed right out of the zone. Bumped into the field gun who did nothing last turn.
So at this point, I'm just sort of weighing my options here. I still have the middle module to go still. Just debating on who I can do a lot of work to. So that Angel's going to walk over here. Wind up piercing that one who has 18 boxes left, I believe.
Yeah, so your armor pierce the Marauder has 18 boxes left. And roll pretty nice, too. That's a nice 18 damage to the box. That's a good one.
And then I attack the Juggernaut and put a couple of points into him.
Yeah, you boost damage on him, and you roll okay here.
Yeah.
You put another 6 points into him. That's pretty good. He only had 8 boxes left, so he's down to 2, and you took out most of his aspects.
Yeah. So again, it's just basically threat mitigation with Vlad. I can't necessarily go for huge flashy plays right now. I just want to make sure I don't lose stuff trivially.
Some of these, even the level of control that you're exercising though is pretty impressive. Mm-hmm. Like as the Vlad player, I'm kind of stuck behind trying to figure out what the recovery plan is.
It's true. So here I want to kill that Marauder or weaken him. So I kill him and then I just put some extra damage into that objective. So it's dice off 3. So I wind up doing 5 damage 3 times, I believe.
Yeah, which is exactly enough to kill the objective. So that'll do.
So he did pretty well, and then he's going to overtake and sprint back to safety. So that's that story of that Nerif.
Yeah, that's actually really good because not only are now you're threatening those pieces in multiple spots, but you're also keeping something in reserve. Like you've got a lot of stuff under control.
Mm-hmm. So over here, I'm measuring my, I think that's a Shepherd or something over there.
Yeah, you're debating, I think, if you wanted the Shepherd to engage a bunch of rifles or something like that, but ultimately you end up just removing a Fury.
I figure that was probably the better play. So I go score 2 points this turn. 1 in my zone, and 1, and I deny a couple points as well.
Yeah,
So.
you destroyed the objective and you scored 1 in your zone, so that catches you up and you prevent me from scoring in the top zone, which is a big deal.
Yes.
Yeah, it's not looking great. You've got a small scenario lead and a pretty commanding position attrition-wise. You've definitely taken out a ton of my jacks and most of the rifles. At this point, those 2 angels are a problem for me. I have to figure out a solution. So I fully load the destroyer.
Yep.
He goes first.
This is feeding as
Vlad
well.
did feat and cast Signs of Importance. So I get a free charge. I hit you on the free charge with Signs of Importance. Dice even does a truckload of damage to you. Buys an attack, hoping for maybe a crit amputation here. Doesn't get it, but does hit again. Does 10 more points of damage.
Which kills him to the box.
Yep.
As angels only have 25 boxes.
Yeah, so that was super good. I'm totally into that. The Juggernaut charges. He'll use his fist. His movement's fine, but his cortex is crippled, so he couldn't normally get a focus to charge. But bonus, the feat gives free charges. So I get in there, hit with the fist, and boom. Nice damage roll there.
Yes.
Does a whole bunch to that poor little Nephilim.
So you've got them. That's pretty much your battle group, other than that one Marauder down there. I got a unit of Rifle Corps here just walking up and attacking the Forsaken.
Yeah, a couple of them put some melee attacks into the Forsaken with Signs of Importance. Hits. Actually doesn't kill the Forsaken, leaves him on a couple of boxes there. And then the other guy does manage to hit through Signs of Importance, and he finishes him. So I got a couple left here. They're going to do a big CRA on the Sorkon Hellion. So I got 3 or 4 of them. They walked to get into melee, so they can still do their CRA. Their blunderbusses are base POW 12 too, so they lose a lot of range compared to the rifles, but they make up for it in kind of pure slug shot power.
Yes, and punishing the sorceress, like removing the sorceress, is a big deal for me. Like not having that free charge is kind of a huge deal. So it takes her out to the box. So if that D3 healing was actually almost pretty relevant there.
Yeah, it's if she'd been full, she would have been alive there. So yeah, no, it's crazy that mortar blast actually mattered too. So one of the guys from this unit who was engaged by the Shepherd just walked out of melee. She took a free strike and killed him. The leader and the one remaining rocket both aimed. They took their shots. They hit and kill. So they finished her. I will score that zone.
It's a good thing that whole unit is in that zone.
All of them both. The mortar activates, moves up. I want to have the mortar on deck to possibly go into the zone. It shoots the objective and actually misses. The objective is defense 5. The mortar is rat, almost nothing. So it actually misses. Scatters its shot, but it clips the spell martyr, kills it, and it hits the Nerif too. Puts a point or two into the Nerif. So, they can't all be winners, but that one certainly was okay. We're going to do some CRAs with, Joe first is going to give +2 to hit, and he's going to shoot. He's going to do some of that damage there.
So that angel has admonition up, so triggering admonition early is a problem. So they're just going to put in whatever damage they can with just their guns. Thankfully, it's pretty easy to do that to an angel, as they are only armor 17.
Yeah, manages to get a fair bit of work. I'm kind of conscious of how that angel is really like your late game plan. It's how you're going to finish the things that I should be afraid of, and it's how you're going to kind of close the game. So I'm trying to soften him up, maybe take an aspect. I end up charging him with the Marauder in such a way that I still get melee range on the Shepherd. So obviously that's the moment you choose to admonition.
And I admonition directly towards Vlad.
Yeah. That's a little frightening. What's that all about?
One thing is I'm down on clock right now in a pretty significant manner, so I want to have a decent way of closing out the game that doesn't wind up taking 5 or 6 more turns, because I don't have that in the tank.
What have you got left time-wise? About 8 minutes, something like that?
Approximately.
Yeah, I've got a little bit of a time advantage right now, but I think it's unfortunately mostly caused by me having seeded my entire army.
Yeah.
So less of a clock advantage and more of a player disadvantage.
So at this point, just sort of tidying up.
Yeah, we got some scenario pressure.
Yep.
I managed to score a point in that zone. I denied you scoring a point I did not deny you scoring a point in your zone, but I did get everybody out of my zone. So I scored 2 points that turn to your 1.
Yes.
So shrinking the gap a little bit.
So threshold checks, the Sarah frenzies onto that Marauder, and just does a surprising amount of work on his frenzy.
Yep. Takes out another arm. Actually, I believe both arms.
Yeah.
Took out left and right arm on that attack.
The Bloodseer is okay because he's threshold 10. The Nerf actually freaks out.
Yeah, and we take a moment to figure this out, but he does not have line of sight to the Bloodseer. So his closest target that he can charge in line of sight is actually one of the Winter Guard.
So that's good to know that it's just the model that he can see that he charges. He doesn't just ESP know where that model is and charge him instead.
Or like turn around and charge your caster or something like that. Like,
yeah. So we're just going to go through the war room here and just look at the frenzy rules. It's good to know these things because sometimes they come up and sometimes they're pretty important. So you charge the closest model within line of sight.
Yep. It's I don't know. I can't think he would have had a better activation in a lot of ways.
No, other than killing that one Jack. But I think this turn is basically I'm going to Fury that Angelius, heal him up for a bit just because he took a bit of chip damage, and then just put him into Vlad.
You're going to try to kill Vlad this turn?
I think so. I'm too far down on clock to come back from an attrition or scenario advantage, so thankfully you moved up Vlad on your turn. And you didn't move the dog.
I did not move the dog. We checked that. It's what Craig's putting on here is wise. The notion of being able to shift gears really intelligently. So I did move Vlad just a little bit further forward. Not really for any reason. So we can chalk that up as a bit of a mistake. I did not keep the dog within that 3-inch bubble. So the dog has counter charge, so maybe it can get within the 3-inch bubble. But Craig is not unaware of that. So he's going to position pretty carefully for that counter charge.
Mm-hmm. So one thing I'm just doing here is just finishing him off with finishing off that one Jack with a Forsaken.
Yep, Forsaken does its job this time. Rolls well enough.
So she's gonna walk up, throw Fury on him just to make the math a little bit better on that Angel doing the job.
Yeah, Fyanna getting Fury on that Angel makes it pretty nasty.
Yeah.
If you go with the armor piercing attack, which you probably will, because I don't think you'll be able to get both attacks in without taking the counter charge from the dog.
Yeah.
It's what, dice plus
9.
9?
Dice plus 9.
Yep. So you stay out for the dog. You're just out.
Yep.
Vlad's still defense 15.
Yep. So I need a 9 here.
Boost to hit. Needs a 9. See if he can do it.
All right, here we go.
Hits with authority. All right. Dice plus 9 here.
Yep.
Let's do it, Craig. Yeah.
And just does 24 damage.
That's a lot. I can reduce by 5, and it's 24. Yep, it's 29 otherwise. You just obliterate Vlad. That's it. All right, guys. So that's our video. That's our first in a bit of a deep dig series, learning a new list with a focus on Vlad1. Obviously, this is early in the process. We'll skip some of the intermediate steps. I'll play this list a bunch off camera and come back to you with something like Game 10 or Game 20 next week, and we'll talk about where the next development stage is going to be. But let us know what you think in the comments. Let us know if you like this version of Vlad1 or what you think about this matchup. Somewhat controversially, this matchup is known to many as good for either side. I'd love to hear some opinions on that. Ideally backed up by some research or some thoughts on the matter, but also just opinions are fine. Mm-hmm. Check us out on Twitter. Craig, do you have Twitter?
I do not at this point.
Okay, Craig does not have Twitter. Don't follow Craig on Twitter. I'm at TEnchanter. You can check us out on facebook.com/ArcaneAssist, and please subscribe to the channel. We appreciate it, and we'll see you guys next Monday or on our next mini-series episode.
All right.